right, we're gonna see how well these heels do during this. They may come off, but I was like, any excuse to wear my Dior's that have been sitting in my magical keepsake box in Dallas? I'm wearing them. Whew. So, I'm giving myself permission to be messy. That is my theme for this year, and I've lived my whole life trying to do everything perfectly, and let me tell you how well that's gone. So I'm trusting myself to be up here. I had my notes back there. Kit called me. I was actually boarding my flight from Brazil 1 week ago, and she asked if somebody unfortunately couldn't make it, and she was like, Robin, are you in? And I was like, yep, I'm in. She's like, what's your topic? And just roll it out. So this is authenticity at its finest. So I'm trusting that, and backstage Lita said, they asked me how I was feeling, and I was like, I'm going to take my notes, and they said, I think you're good, you got this, so I'm trusting. Thank you, Lita. All right, so we are going to start today by talking about authentically living your truth. And this is all about being yourself and how to show up as yourself and attract experiences and energy into your life. And it beautifully complements what Cassandra and Dimple set the tone for this morning. So I want to start by a question. It's the question that Cassandra started in her talk this morning is, who am I? And I know how many of you, when 2020 hit, the pandemic and everything, started asking yourself that question? Just really looking like, who am I? So I started thinking about this question, and it took me back to 2001 to a culturally appropriated movie that you all know, Zoolander. And in this movie, we find Derek Zoolander, who is a really, really, really good-looking model, male model. And I'm setting the tone, so he's at an awards show, and he's up for Male Model of the Year. He knows he's getting it. He's won it several times. He's like, I've got this. Sitting in the audience, they announce the winner. He struts up on the stage. He's like, I've got this. He starts giving his speech. Everybody's just looking at him, mouth agape. And then next to him is Hansel. And all of a sudden, everybody starts laughing. And Derek realized they did not call his name. He did not win the award. Embarrassed, humiliated, he floods out of the auditorium, and this is where we find him.
Who am I? I guess I have a lot of things to ponder.
So Derek asked himself, he saw his reflection, and it caused him to look like, oh, do I really even know you? I know who the world thinks I am, but do I really know me? So that question really started plaguing me. And I've actually been asking this question for a long time, like prior to COVID. I've been questioning, like, how can I be travel Robin in all areas of my life? And I think many of you can probably relate to this, because we can all try on different identities. We have different personas. There's different friend groups that we're around that we express ourselves more fully. But for me, I've had two separate lives. It's like I had Travel Robin, who was out there. She was bold. She was spontaneous. She was trying on new experiences. She was meeting people, just expressing herself. It was like this whole wide open world where I didn't have to be concerned with what people thought about me. And then there was me back home when I was around those who knew me my whole life. She was a little more reserved. She was a little timid in sharing her voice. She would share a voice when it felt safe, but if anybody said, oh, well, why did you say that? Then she would immediately like crawl into her hole and say, oh, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. Okay. And just diminish, like numb, numb, numb. And so I had already been asking this question for a long time. And then when the pandemic hit, and I found myself back in being grounded again and still and not traveling, not having that, let's face it, it's an escape for all of us in many ways, but it's our identity too. But I didn't have that to turn to. I only had myself. So this question kept plaguing me. Who was I without travel? So prior to the pandemic, I was traveling all over the world. I was doing my fun photo shoot mission, hiring local photographers, wearing fun clothes. I had started 2020 in Morocco and Tunisia and was just living my best life. It was so great. And then, of course, we know what happened. And I found myself back in Dallas. I was moved in with my sister. My brother-in-law was like, you can stay as long as you need to. Yeah, 2 years later, I was still there. And then in March, my sister was like, I think it might be time for you to move on. But when the pandemic hit, things changed a little. This was my first trip to the grocery store. I didn't know what we were dealing with. Nobody knew. This was before we were even told to wear masks, and it wasn't cold outside. But I put on my heaviest coat, I put on my hood, I put on a scarf. I had gloves on because I didn't know. It was like, how contagious is this thing? But I was going into the zone because I was like, well, my sister and her husband can't get sick, so they have kids, but I'll take one for the team. I'll do it. I'll go to the grocery store. So life changed a lot. And it really highlighted a lot for us. So, and we all know this, like, it really caused us all to sit with ourselves in a different way. But then on top of that, we were facing a global pandemic. It was something that every country in the world was impacted by. People were getting sick. Many of you in this room I know were in different countries when the pandemic hit and questioning, like, do I stay? Do I go? If I go, where do I go? Because many of us didn't have home bases at that time. And it was real. It was real for us on different levels than it was real for others. Because it did have us halt, like everything in our life halted. Many of you lost loved ones, you went through breakups, your jobs, businesses pivoted, you maybe lost a job or you had to switch and go into a different sector. It was just all changing and all moving very, very fast. And then on top of that, we were faced with tragedy after tragedy in the BIPOC and LGBTQ plus communities. We were faced with just the levels of racism that were just so heavy and really impacted on a collective level. Insurrection, failed governments. It was just all a lot at once. And then on top of that, there was the virus, and many people were getting sick. And on top of that, maybe it wasn't COVID, but people would find themselves sick, but they couldn't get a bed in a hospital because of hospital rooms. And so we're not going to dwell on this and go back to remind you, but it's really that space that it caused us to really look in the mirror and stop and ask. And for me, I found myself, as I said, back in Dallas, and my business, I had to pivot my business. I had a travel-related business. I was planning trips for people all over the world. That all ended. I didn't have any savings. I had little credit. I had a free place to stay, though, so that worked. And then it was just tragedy after tragedy. I lost my uncle. I lost my cousin to cancer. And then I lost one of my best friends at age 36. And it was just a lot of tragedy. And it opened me up to a whole new awareness and level of anxiety and panic that I'd never experienced in my life. And so I'm going to show you a picture of me, but I understand there's many of you who, like me, are highly sensitive persons. And it may be triggering or may bring up some trauma for you. So if that's the case, I invite you to shut your eyes. But I just want to be with the realness for a moment of what it was really like and what it's still like on many levels, because I still deal with this on a regular basis, and I have a lot of tools that I use to support. But this was my reality a lot of the times. I would find myself on the ground in tears, clutching a pillow, clutching tissues. I would go through a box of tissues. And I felt, as Jeff said, with we, like the whole beauty of fear is me, not we, or we, not me, sorry. And I felt so alone. Like my sister was right outside my room, and I felt like I couldn't tell her that I was dealing with all of this. But it opened a window for me. And it caused me to really sit with myself and ask some deeper questions, like, who am I? And what makes me me outside of travel, outside of work, outside of being with my friends? Like, who am I at my authentic core? And it gave me many opportunities to, and many of us opportunities to explore and discover who we are outside of travel. As an oracle, I spent a lot of time diving into my oracle cards and just tuning in to my higher self and spending a lot of time in nature and just connecting in that way and just asking a lot of these deep questions. So for the remainder of our time today, I want to get away from the heaviness, and I do want to take a moment though to just, everybody just take, if it feels good, you can place your hand on your heart. I always like putting my hand on my heart because it reminds me that I'm a human being being breathed by life. But just take a deep breath and just be present to being here together in person. We're alive. We're all here together, and that is a beautiful, beautiful gift and miracle. So I'm going to invite us to play a little bit. We're going to dive into our imagination, do a little visualization to really tap into who we are at our core and find our authentic self. Because a lot of times when we hear authenticity, we can think, oh, not fake. And while there is some truth to that, authenticity is deeper. It's like really knowing ourselves when we look in the mirror and we take off all of the identities, we strip away everything that anybody's ever told us, we strip away any beliefs we have about ourselves, and we sit there and just lock eyes with ourselves. And we say, I see you. I see how powerful you are. I see how beautiful you are. How brave and strong. I see how you keep getting up, no matter what. And I see your personality and your beautiful smile. So I invite you to take some time this evening or this weekend to, it's a little uncomfortable, but take some time to stare in the mirror at yourself and just lock eyes with that beautiful human being staring back at you. Because there is no one else like you in this world, and that is magical. Okay, so we're going to explore what it is to be authentic and live your truth by accessing your inner child or your younger self. So how many of you are familiar with the term inner child? Okay. So this is the part of us that when we were young, we were fully self-expressed. We had little fear. We didn't have that frontal lobe developed. We were just going out and doing what lit us up, what brought us joy, what sounded fun, what was curious. So we're going to take a moment to tap into that. So I invite you, if you're comfortable, only do what's comfortable for you, but if you're comfortable, I invite you to shut down your eyes. And if visualizations or meditation are not as comfortable for you, then you can get out a piece of paper and just take some notes. But we're going to take a few moments to just tap into a visualization. And I want you to go back to yourself as a child. Find a time when you were just loving life, just fully embracing. Maybe you were out skipping in the woods, skipping in the field, catching fireflies. Maybe you were getting your hands dirty digging for earthworms, or your hands in the creek looking for crawdads. Maybe you were a painter. You loved to color and draw. You wanted to just really express yourself through art. Or maybe it was music or sports. Whatever it is, take yourself back to a memory. And in that moment, look at yourself and really see, like, okay, start to describe yourself in your mind. Like, what is it about this person that is so unique? How are they expressed? What did they really enjoy doing? And then I'll invite you to find a few words that come to mind right now. Don't judge it or try to change it, but what word comes to your mind when you think of that part of you? The part of you that was just completely lit up by life, full of wonder, curiosity. And then just be with it for a moment. And when you feel ready, I invite you to thank your younger self for showing up today. And you can open your eyes when it feels comfortable and ready. And write down the words that came to you. Or if there was a phrase or something that showed up for you, write it down and allow yourself to be really present to that. And then I invite you to look at those words and see how those words show up for you when you're traveling. How is that spirit embodied when you're traveling from place to place, experiencing a new country for the first time, meeting new people, just going out in the woods and nature, connecting, whatever it was that your activity was. So that's you. That is you at your authentic self. That is you just fully stripped down, owning who you are. And for me, I'm always so curious when I travel. I prefer normally to stay in places that are more local so that I can just be in the culture and really embody and experience that. I live life full of wonder. And that's why I have it tattooed on my arm. So my grandma, she lived like that every single day. Life full of childlike wonder. Oh, Robin, look at the cardinals. Aren't they just so beautiful? Oh, the raspberries are really sweet this year. And it's those little moments that we explore and express ourselves through travel that we can start to bring into our everyday lives. And as difficult as the past few years have been, that has been the biggest gift to me, because through all of the moments, the panic attacks, the anxiety, the questioning of who I am, it caused me to see myself on a deeper level and then start to bring that person out in different areas and around different people and show that it's like, oh, wait, I don't have to travel to another country or another city or another place to embody that. I can develop this sense of wonder and curiosity wherever I am. Now, obviously, we all still love travel and it's ingrained in us, and that's always going to be a part. But it's not what defines us. Who you are right here, that is who defines you. So as we close down and wrap up our time together today, I invite you as you leave here to share with somebody, maybe it's the person sitting next to you, or we're going to break soon for lunch, but share with them, like, what words came up for you? What activities did you love doing as a child? How do you bring that into your life now? And really allow yourself to express yourself through that. And it's in those moments when we're being our authentic self and really just allowing ourselves to be seen in that way, that we then attract others into that light. We attract other experiences into that light. And it gives others permission to show up and be themselves in that way. Last week, I think 2 weeks ago actually, I was in Brazil and I was doing a photo shoot. And I was so excited. It was my first photo shoot international since the pandemic. And I just trusted, I followed my intuition. Normally I'll go on like Airbnb experiences to find a photographer, or I'll ask people maybe from the area, who do you recommend, who do you know? And I was just on Instagram and I was on a tour company and I saw somebody's name and I was like, oh, who's that? And I just clicked on it and then I saw that he was a photographer. And I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. So I reached out, told him my mission, told him I want to connect with locals and experience their culture through their eyes. And so we scheduled the shoot, went through, and it was an amazing day. He doesn't speak English, I don't speak Portuguese. It was very eventful. But afterwards, he reached out to me and he was just thanking me for the experience. And then he posted a photo from the shoot on his Instagram. And in his writing, he said that he was ready to let go of this. He was feeling a little defeated, a little lost in life, wondering who he is, what he's doing. And then I reached out to him and I told him about my mission. And then we spent an entire day together. And without knowing the same language, we shared the language of energy. And we were able to really be with one another in that way. And it was by me showing up and being myself, just fully expressed and open to whatever was going to come during that day, and giving him an opportunity that he saw, wow, this is something I actually really enjoy doing, and I'm not ready to let it go. So you never know who you are impacting. You never know, it's a stranger you're passing on the street or next to on a plane or a bus. My motto when I'm traveling is, some people we meet for a day, others we meet for life, and not one is greater than the other. So I invite you to go out in this world with curiosity, really embracing that, and just be open to who you meet and the experiences that come into your life. And as my friend Keith would say, you do you, boo. Be yourself, fully expressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Right. So, who has questions for Robin? I'm back, by the way. Yeah, back there. Run, Michelle, run. Hey, Robin. So in the beginning of the presentation, you talked about travel, Robin, which was super interesting because I feel like I also have my alter ego that I call Fierce Diva Cassandra. And I really connect with what you were saying about living authentically. And I have a question more about how you actually did it. Because showing up authentically and really putting in that work is a lot of work. I think about, oh yeah, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna do this. So how do you, how did you accept that it was going to be work to actually do it? Because I'm lazy. I know I'm lazy, and I still want to show up as my authentic self, but the lazy me is So yeah, how did you move through the feeling of laziness, or accept the fact that it was gonna just be work every day to show up like that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I would invite you to consider that the lazy part of you is part of your authentic self.
Yes.
Because it's ingrained in us that we need to have it figured out, we need a plan, we need, oh, okay, that didn't work out, so I gotta immediately switch to the next thing. Oh, that's done, celebrate, no, not really, no time for celebration, let me move on. So honestly, it was through a lot of rest that a lot of this came. It was through me giving myself permission not to go and figure it out. And that I think is when we can do that and give ourselves that permission, then it really opens doorways for other things. And then I tried on a lot of practices, a lot of I started getting into EFT tapping for my anxiety. I would go you'll find me anywhere. If you see me outside and you see a person and you're with hands on a tree, it's probably me. I learned to ground myself in nature, but it all came through trial, just trying on a bunch of different things. And I always say we have a toolbox, and one day something's going to work, and the next day it may not. But it's just having those moments of courage, and just each day getting up and saying okay, all right, I'm going to do this. And if I'm going to do this and binge watch an entire Netflix series in a day, and that's part of it, then that's part of it.
Thank you, Robin. Any other questions? No? You want lunch? Before I send Robin away, I just will shout out a book recommendation called Laziness Does Not Exist by Devin Price. Highly recommend. All right, please give a huge round of applause to Robin Williams.